If you've been following Pantheon Rise of the Fallen at all lately, you've probably heard the term Project Faerthale. But what actually is it, and why is it so important? Well, let's talk about that.
This is BazgrimTV. Learn, laugh, level up.
First, let's start with the basics. What is Faerthale? In Terminus, Faerthale is the elven home city, located on the western shore of the continent of Kingsreach. And from what we can tell, it will be somewhat similar in layout to the human starting zone of Thronefast shown here, in that the zone as a whole consists of an entire city itself with a newbie adventuring area surrounding it. Back in the June 2018 Pantheon newsletter, Visionary Realms announced that they had decided to make Faerthale their reference zone. So what is a reference zone? It basically means that Faerthale will be the first zone in Pantheon that includes all of the core game systems, so that it'll be a good representation of the quote-unquote minimum caliber of what zones in Pantheon will be like at launch. In other words, it will definitely continue to see some tuning, but all of the important pieces of a typical zone will be there. That way, instead of the devs just always talking about what these systems will eventually be like, they can just point to Faerthale to show people what it actually is like. Because a lot of people tend to just take things at face value, and have a hard time imagining what the bigger vision is. But with Faerthale, whether you're playing the game at a convention or just watching it on a stream, you'll actually be able to witness the quote-unquote Pantheon experience with your own eyes. So some of the systems that they've mentioned will be included are day-night cycles, dynamic events and spawn cycles, the atmosphere system, extreme climate system, the perception system, NPC dispositions, crafting and harvesting, climbable surfaces, interactable objects, significant boss encounters, and more. Now, all of this is obviously very exciting, but you may be wondering, this is just one zone. What about all the other zones? Well, that same month, Joppa appeared on the Voices of Terminus show and explained how nailing down their workflow for building a zone from start to finish will help them fill out the rest of the world much more efficiently.
If you've been following our development, you know that we have been pretty public facing for just about the entirety of our development process. And it's been really good in a lot of ways, but it's been also really challenging in some ways. Because what happens behind the scenes when MMOs are developed is things change a lot. Things change a lot. And you're going to get, different tech that comes into play. You're going to get different people coming in to work on the game. You're going to realize that the way that you've done something in the past is not the best way to do it. And so you have to go in and change things, or there's just so many, and you have to manage that, and you can't just constantly be churning. But Faerthale is what we're calling our reference zone. And what that means is, if you don't know what that means, it's a zone that from the very beginning to the very end, we're building in a way that is how all of our zones need to be and are meant to be built. And a lot of the zones that we've been showing and a lot of the zones we've been developing have been zones that have been around for quite a while, because when we first started this venture, there was a lot of things that honestly we just didn't know. We didn't really know. And I'm referring to things like optimization, object batching, the kind of atlasing that you can do and need to do with your textures and different things to make things look pretty and run well, which is something we're committed and need to do. But it's not just zone building, it's also game design. And Faerthale is going to be the first zone when it's finished that from top to bottom, from the world building pipeline to the art pipeline to the game design pipeline and implementation, everything from atmospheres, climates, perception, all the way to climbable objects, interactable objects, will be from top to bottom a zone that is complete.
So then that brings us back to the original question. What exactly is Project Faerthale? Well, it's basically just the name that Visionary Realms has given to their coordinated, all-hands-on-deck effort to reach this next milestone. We know that a very early rendition of Faerthale was available to testers in Pre-Alpha 4 in December 2018, because usually in game development there's multiple departments working on different things in parallel. But after Pre-Alpha 4, they really buckled down and shifted their entire focus as a company on what they then dubbed Project Faerthale. But I think it's important to note that Project Faerthale isn't just Pre-Alpha 5, although that will be a big part of it. Because as you can see from this forum post, Eridune describes Project Faerthale as a, quote, major internal milestone that should open up lots of opportunities to reach and grow the community. Because this goes beyond just finishing Faerthale as the reference zone. Project Faerthale includes everything from updating all of the animations, the character models, the sounds, the optimization, the visual effects, etc., to really drive home all of the elements of what it will be like to play Pantheon at launch. And if this sounds like a lot of work, that's because it is. This is shaping up to be a huge turning point and proving grounds for the game, and that just always takes a lot of time to get right. But if all goes according to plan, it should be well worth the wait. I really hope you learned something from this video, and if you did, hit the like button and subscribe so that you can stay up to date with more Pantheon coverage like this. And while you're at it, please share this video so that others can stay informed as well. But until next time, my name is Bazgrim, and thanks for watching.